Some breaking news tonight. A bomb emergency is unfolding on the North Shore.
10's Jess Pelliccione joins us now from Mossman. Jess, what more can you tell us about this situation?
There's a tense standoff underway here at Burrawong Ave at Mossman. The bomb squad rushed here at about 2:30 this afternoon following reports an 18-year-old...
Jess Pelliccione was always a speaker, so it came as no surprise to those that know her when she chose to become a journalist. Throughout her career, Jess has reported for some of the most well-known TV networks and radio stations in Australia. But it was as a crime reporter that she was able to combine her love for journalism with her interest in the criminal justice system. We sat down with Jess to discover the person behind the camera.
From a very young age, I was one of those incredibly irritating children that would constantly want to read out loud to my mother, and I think that made me want to be a newsreader. I started out working in radio at a little Sydney station called 2SM, and then I moved on to work at 2UE in Sydney. I then became a police reporter at 2GB, working with Alan Jones and Ray Hadley as a interesting experience, as you would imagine. And then after that, I became a crime reporter at Channel 10. And I worked there for about a year and currently freelancing in radio. I think being a communicator means that it's up to you to make the news accessible to people who are listening or watching at home. These people might never have set foot in a courtroom. They might never see a crime scene. They might never see, a world event or, something that's happening in Parliament. And it's up to you to explain to them in the clearest way possible what's happening, what it feels like, what it sounds like, what it's like to be there. And also inform them on how it's going to impact on them and their lives. They have a large impact on people. That's what people are always talking about. Things like I covered the collar bomb incident while I was working for Channel 10. People were talking about that for weeks and months afterwards, not only just in Sydney, across the world. I also covered the disappearance of Kaisha, and that was something that people talked about for ages. People wanted to know what happened to her. Do you think it was the parents or, other options? And I think my interest in that now led me to study law. I went to cover a horrible story, and it wasn't even, something that anyone would remember now, but a little girl had been hit by a bus on her way. She'd gone out to catch the bus to school, and the bus had hit her as she ran across the road, and there was this hole in the front of the bus. There was this big dent in the shape where you could see where it had hit the little girl, and it was horrendous. Her family were all there, and they were devastated. And I got home and I couldn't figure out why I was so tired. And I think the next day it sort of hit me that it was just that I was so emotionally drained, from that. And every single story like that is awful to cover. I haven't sort of done any of those, big overseas stories where there's been mass casualties or anything, but just one family's grief can sometimes, just affect you so much. Yeah, I think you definitely have a moral responsibility. Often your perspective on something that's happened, it might be the only perspective that a viewer or a listener has access to, and I think you have a moral obligation to present things accurately and as unbiased as you possibly can for that reason. And I also think you have a secondary moral responsibility, as I was saying before, to the families of a victim that you might come across as well. I think radio and TV are both very different, and I think they're both very effective in communicating in different ways. Nothing will beat the immediacy of radio, which is why I enjoyed working in it so much, is that you're often that's often a listener's first the first time they'll be hearing about something, and that's why it can be so exciting. However, I think TV can, like they say, a picture tells 1,000 words. I think the visual dynamic of television is also a really effective way of getting your message across. A lot of the skills only come with experience, and I think the patience is an important part, and also don't expect to get paid too much money. You're doing it for the love of it, not the money.
Thanks, Jess. Jess Pelliccione, our crime reporter there on the scene.